Today we discuss grief. We all experience grief, and it comes in many forms. It can be the loss of a pet. It can be the loss of a loved one. It can be a change in our lives, such as retirement, becoming an empty nester, change in career. All of these things can bring up these emotions of grief. And how do we deal with them? And that's what today's all about. Welcome to Soul Aligned Living's Transformational Tea Talk. Here, we're on a mission to share holistic practices to help others on their well-being journey. And I want to let you know that this episode does come with a trigger warning. It can be a little heavy, and especially if you're someone who your grief is raw or new, or even if it happened years ago, it may bring up some emotions. So we just want to let you know that ahead of time, but we are going to come into the space with some attention and surrounding ourselves with love and light. So go ahead and become comfortable. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take a breath. We surround ourselves with a bubble of white light, the bubble of white love and light. Breath. We come into the space to learn and grow. And we are reminded that we are love and light. And we can tap into that whenever we want. And we are so thankful for this time together. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Take a breath.
Good morning.
Okay.
So, like Sharon said, we're going to talk about grief today. As many of you know, we have recently, years ago, dealt with some heavy grief, loss of our grandchildren. And we had to learn how to process that. It wasn't easy, but we have tools that we can use to deal with that. My experience with grief has always not been good. I don't like change, which is ironic because my life is about change. But there's a good way to grieve and a not so good way to grieve. And the not so good way is all of the toxic things. Suck it up. Let's not deal with it. Let's, don't cry, be strong. We're going to numb the pain. All of that. That's not good. So, basics. There are 5 stages to grief. Like Sharon said, that's for any grief, any change, divorce, kids moving out, a move, loss of a career, loss of a loved one. I think when we think of grief, we think basically the loss of a loved one more than anything. Those are the heaviest and the hardest. But the 5 stages of grieving are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they can happen in any order. And the ultimate goal is getting to acceptance, where we can accept what has happened for what it is and continue to live and not be stuck in that grief process. Some of the toxic ways that we grieve are numbing the pain, avoiding, throwing ourselves into work, not feeling things. And all that does is prolong the process, makes it harder to get there. My biggest grief was probably when my grandmother passed away. It took me 12 years to get through that. I threw myself into a whole lot of negative lifestyle choices and not processing, not feeling, and it did not matter because I had zero self-worth because my entire self-worth was tied up in another person. And when that happened and she was gone, I had no clue who I was. No idea at all, which was really ironic because I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. I have all of these. No, I wasn't a grandmother yet then, but I was a mother. I had children. I had a career. I had a lot of things going, but when that person died, I no longer knew who I was. And that's the hard part. So from there, we have to learn how to process it. We have to accept it and realize that life is not permanent. Everything changes consistently. And if we think that it's going to stay the same, we're setting ourselves up for heartbreak and getting stuck in that. So we have to learn to be fluid and accept things and the changes that are happening. And they're not easy. And I was asked last night, is there a right way to process grief? Because I know all about the wrong ways. But the right ways are things that I learned from Michelle about accepting the emotion for what it is, being okay with the pain, being okay with the tears. Oh, my favorite thing that she says is tears are like poo. If you never let it go, it will build up and become toxic. So imagine never pooping. What's going to happen? We're going to die. The same with crying. Imagine never crying. That builds up its disease. So how do we process it? Michelle taught me about journaling and feeling and accepting and purge writing. Sharon does yoga and meditation, and I do Qigong and Kung Fu. And the Qigong helps me center and move emotions, and the Kung Fu lets me get rid of some of my anger. Because there's nothing like punching some things sometimes. In a positive way, of course. Our ultimate goal is we want to learn how to live again. And it doesn't mean that we forget the people that touched our lives briefly, or the career that served us well, or the marriage that had some really great benefits from it, but ultimately needed to end because it wasn't healthy anymore. Mine wasn't healthy.
Michelle.
I just needed a moment.
What's that all about?
I don't know. I've been holding it in for a minute and I have no idea why. So I just had to let it go. But I had to wait.
You needed a release.
I needed to wait for Shannon to pause so I didn't start laughing in the middle of her talking.
But that's okay, because laughter is part of processing. Like,
It is.
Have you ever been with that person that just laughs hysterically at a funeral?
Yes. So
that's processing grief.
This is why I'm laughing, because Michaela and I were in the drive-thru last week at Starbucks, and it's become a thing now where when I need to do turnaround, or even if I don't need to turn around, I will find a reason I need to turn around or do a U-turn so I can pull into the Starbucks, and I'm like, oh, I need to do a U-turn. I'll just pull in here and flip around real quick. And in that flipping around, I go through the drive-thru. So it's become a thing now that I do. And I'm like, oh, got to turn around. I missed my turn. And I pull into the Starbucks, go through the drive-thru. I'm like, okay, now we can continue on our way. And I was telling Michaela last week, I'm like, when I think about my life 5 years ago, I remember very distinctly being in a Starbucks in Colorado because I was so anti-Starbucks. And my sister is like a Starbucks everyday person. And so we're in Colorado at Tiffany's visiting her, and we're in Starbucks having breakfast. And I'm like bitching because I'm like, who eats breakfast at Starbucks? What is this? I don't eat at Starbucks. Who goes to Starbucks for coffee? You know, like just kind of like on a little Michelle rant, for those that know me. And so I'm thinking, okay, so in the last 5 years, how much my life has changed that now I go through Starbucks pretty regularly. I used to also not be a Target girl, and now I'm a Target girl. And then all the other things, of course, those are very like superficial things about my life that have changed. But it got me thinking of all the other things that changed in my life over the last 5 years because of a very significant loss that I suffered. But I look back over it and I think, like, I wouldn't be a yoga teacher, wouldn't have any idea about meditation. I would never have went to school for Ayurveda. I would not be living back in Tennessee, and all, like, a whole myriad of other things if that had not happened. So that is why I just started laughing hysterically, because that reminded me of that conversation with Michaela.
Yes.
Yes. Well, and a lot of times when these situations present themselves to us, we're in the moment devastated. And when I became a single mother at 22 with a newborn, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, it was like the worst thing that could possibly happen in my life. And that was a moment of grief.
Mm-hmm.
But then looking back, I would never, ever be the person I am today had I not experienced that.
Yep. I remember telling my friend Nicole after the separation that, like, I completely lost my identity because I lost my job. And then, like, a week later, the separation happened. So it was like who I was as a person completely changed within like a few weeks' time. And having to go through that grief process, which has brought me now here many years later, not many, but a few years later, to a completely different life that I'm kind of proud of.
Yeah.
But
I think our grief has brought me and you a lot closer. A lot closer.
I think so. And I also think over the years that our grief has separated us. So for those that don't know our relationships on here, because not everybody knows us that watches our T-Talks, Shannon and I went to nursing school together.
Yes.
And Sharon is my mom. So you'll hear us a lot. We've known each other forever. So over the years,
Shannon was one of my very best friends in nursing school. And then we would come together, and then I wouldn't hear from Shannon for years. And then we'd come together, and then I wouldn't hear from Shannon for years. And so some of that had to do with that grief cycle that she was in, where she kind of just secluded herself from everybody and everyone.
That was after my grandmother passed away. I did a lot of self-sabotaging and isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to test the mascara this morning, because here we go with the tears. And here we are trying to heal the world and heal ourselves. Because we had to go through all of this.
And in helping others, that is healing in itself for them and for you.
And healing also helps us to, as we heal from the grief and other things that have happened to us in our lives, and the traumas that grief has caused, healing those lets us see situations differently, where we're not stuck in that grief. So when something does happen, you're able to sit back and kind of recognize what it is, and you don't have to go to the depths of despair to deal with your grief. You can acknowledge it for what it is, sit with it, have that pain, cry, and also continue to move on in your life instead of letting it cripple you.
Yeah, that's the point, learning how to live again.
And it's sneaky too, grief is, because you go through these things and you feel like you've processed it, you've accepted it. I think of when my dad passed away. My dad, who we thought, he was granddaddy. He was, it's like he would live forever. He was strong, even in his 70s. And when we lost him, we kind of knew it was coming. So so we were able to start grieving even before his passing. But then I would think I would be fine and this will happen. And maybe this has happened to you guys. I would just be driving my car, not even thinking about anything, not like, I miss my dad or anything. It would be, and right now I feel it. It's like all of a sudden I would just burst out ugly crying. Just ugly crying, driving down the road.
Yeah.
I do that all the time with Grayson. I mean, it's been not a year yet, and I will just be driving again, not thinking about anything in my own little world, and all of a sudden the tears will just start.
Yes.
They just come.
And so, and you do it, you know, you just, I mean, I always like, I kind of would chuckle at how I must look driving along, falling, but I was like, I don't care, because I am one of those people that shove it down, that try to be strong. I've always been that way. It's something that I worked really, really hard to overcome, and I'm not there yet. I'm still working on that, but I'm better than I was. Much better than I was. So it has to come out. It's meant to come out. That's why the journaling, I just recently lost our 18-year-old grandson, and I wrote letters to him. I just wrote in my journal and just got it out. Got it out. It's not over, and it's not all out. Still, this was still there, and it's going to be there, because it's a process. It's not, I don't think it's something that ever goes away. I think it's something that we kind of learn to live with. And when you do have those memories, though, family member just recently posted a picture that looked just like him from behind, just like him. And she's like, I had to post this. And it was like, and in those moments, like, for me, I found joy, because, wow, I just like, it's like seeing him, but it's also, when we have these memories that pop up, just smile and embrace the feeling, that memory of that person. Grayson, I just thought of him. I don't know what came up the time I held him in my arms, and how beautiful he was. And even though that, you know, that was a moment that I didn't know if I even wanted to participate in, that moment is like, I cherish it. It's like a smile that I got to hold him. So when these memories come around, look at them as like a gift, like their gratitude. Because we will always have our memories. And while we may be happy, because right now I'm, again, fighting back the tears, I'm still so in love with this little baby that I never got to really know. So it's the yin yang world. It's polarizing. I'm happy, sad.
I think one of the best things that we're doing in society now is we're allowing people to spend time with their loved one that has passed away.
Yes.
You probably remember back when we were having children, and a little bit before, if your baby passed away, you didn't get to see it. They took it away. Now they are allowing you to hold this child. They are giving you the time to bond and process, take photographs, so that it's not like something that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
They're allowing us with hospice to spend time and process the grief when our loved ones are passing away. They give us time after that person has passed to talk with them and be with them. I think society got to the point to where death is something we don't talk about, and we want to pretty it up and package it and put it away. But before modern times, people would have wakes in the family where our loved one was in the living room on a bed, where the entire family would gather around for 3 or 4 days until it started smelling bad. But luckily we can fix that now.
But they would give you time to be with them and process their passing and celebrate the end of a good life. Yeah. So we're getting better. We're getting better.
Yes, definitely. If you're from my generation, You did not express yourself. You kept quiet. You sat down. You shut up. And especially around death, it was just like some dark cloud. And it was ominous and it was scary. Maybe it was, and I just wasn't aware, but processing grief and loss, it just wasn't a thing then. It was just like stifled.
Yes. So that's one of those things that we have to be aware of. I call them blockages to grief. All of those voices in our past that said, be strong, tough it up, push it
Don't
aside.
focus on it.
No,
Right.
just ignore it. Get on with your life. Be strong.
Get over it.
Get over it. Don't cry. Be strong.
Why are you focusing on that?
Yeah. Isn't that negative? Like, why would you want to cry all the time? Like, just, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to be aware of those voices and make them go away. Because we don't need to be strong and we don't need to focus on taking care of others. We need to focus on ourselves and our process and what works for us. And if that means laughing or crying or screaming or raging or wishing it didn't happen, all of
Here's the
those.
thing. I think
Right.
we have it wrong. Not we, but society has it wrong where you don't have to be strong. There's strength in healing. There's strength in facing it. There's strength in feeling those emotions and dealing with the emotions. The weakness is the people that are hiding from feeling those feelings. That is weakness. Weakness is not addressing it and not focusing on it and pretending it never happened. It takes a lot of strength to take something head on and feel the emotions and deal with the emotions rather than trying to escape it. And society has flipped it and made it seem like it's a weakness to cry or it's a weakness to have feelings or emotions. And it's really not. It takes more strength to have that moment to yourself or to allow yourself to cry or, to feel those, to just sit in that pain. It takes a lot of strength.
Sometimes a natural thing to do is to self-medicate, to numb it by turning to helpers for that. Alcohol, drugs, whatever or it could be overworking. It could be becoming a worker. Yeah. They're
Toxic trades.
Distractions.
They're what?
Distractions.
Distractions.
Yeah, distractions, yes. But in an effort to numb your pain, these unhealthy habits, and there's
Easiest thing.
yeah, there's a variety because they're instant. They're instant. In this moment, I'll feel better. Right here, right now, I can do this and it'll all go away. But it doesn't. And it makes it worse. Yeah.
It prolongs it.
Yes, it does. It numbs it for sure, but it numbs your healing too.
And so you
So-
eventually get to the place that you can actually sit in it and feel it and deal with it to overcome it.
Right. I wish that I would have been a meditator back when I had some things happen to me because life would have been a lot different then. I would have handled things a lot different, but I didn't. I was a type to just stay busy, get going, to distractions is exactly what it was. I'll distract myself sometimes in unhealthy ways, but I won't have to think about it.
Yes.
Now, and I've had many losses in my life since I've been a meditator, and I like what a difference that I can come into the space and process it through meditation. It's been a tremendous help, that and journaling.
Mhm.
And like Shannon was saying, movement, qigong, yoga, Yoga helps move energy. Qigong helps move that energy. And my go-to when anything is happening is to go hike. When my dad passed, I went and hiked about 200 miles on the Appalachian Trail because that was my healing. And that wasn't a distracting or numbing effect. That was a processing for me that I needed because I just lost my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
When my brother passed away, I went for a walk and I felt
That's one of
better.
those things Michelle tells me to do all the time when I'm processing really weird stuff or hard stuff or grief. She's like, go for a walk, get out of it. Get out of it. You're stuck in something that's in a loop. Get out of it. Go for a walk.
Yeah, it is amazing when you walk and just look at the trees and listen to the birds and feel the sun. And it was nighttime then, but it didn't matter. Feel the moonlight, the starlight on you. It doesn't matter. You're in, nature in itself is healing. So if you're having a bad day, go sit outside, put your feet in the grass. And walking helps move that energy.
About walking. Walking is very meditative for people that can't meditate.
And we have tons of ways that we can process our grief. It's finding the one that works for you, honoring it, accepting it, and processing it. And processing can be walking, meditating, moving, running. I wish I could run.
That's great. It just expels so much energy and to the points where you almost can't breathe. And then you can get into that release state where you just let everything go and all the endorphins are running and emotions are processed. But finding healthy ways to process your grief. Journaling.
Now, I want to mention something that we talk about often that is something that I'm working with someone right now on doing, and that is developing self-love. Because I don't know if there's a person alive who hasn't got tied up with their identity in another person or a situation, a marriage, a job, all these things. And when that thing falls away, you're lost. Like Shannon was saying, she lost her identity. I know once in my life, I lost my identity through a situation. And you really are lost because everything is tied up in this other person or in this job. And you got to find your way out of that. Well, self-love is the path to that. So having self-love, developing self-love, and it's not easy. It's a process and it takes time, but then your identity is you. And these other things can come and go, but you are still you. And it's so important. You can handle a lot when you have that self-love. Then you know how to get to that. You may be rattled a little bit, but you can come back to yourself.
I think back if we would have lost Grayson a few years ago, I don't know how I would have handled it. But because I now know how to process through trauma and grief, I was able to process through it differently than I would have if this did happen years ago. So it made it, I don't want to say more tolerable,
but it made it where when our entire world fell apart, I had tools that I could use and I could pull from to continue to process that grief and not choose unhealthy habits to escape.
And our purpose isn't to escape the pain of life or to have a life that's perfect or without pain or without loss. The purpose is to get through it and continue living in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that is our role here on the planet, is to live and experience and have joy and learn and grow and share. So many good things. And unfortunately, we have these things that we would rather not happen that come up.
Okay.
but they are part of life. It's just that's life experience.
There are things that are going to happen in our life that we don't want to have to navigate. It's important that we learn how to navigate them so that we can grieve and heal from them.
So we talked a lot about I think we talked mostly about losing a loved one, but there are other, there is other grief. But regarding a loved one, just talk to them. Like my brother used to call on the phone, and sometimes when I'm driving in the car, I'll carry on a phone conversation with him like he's there. Another thing that might make me look a little weird while I'm driving down the road. But I'm like, we just have that phone call. And you know what? I feel better. I feel better when I'm done. I talk to those on the other side because I'm getting in an age now where that group is getting larger. So I talk to them. They hear you.
There are so many things that we can grieve, so many losses in life. Don't get stuck. Try to avoid the toxic grieving. And if you do, recognize it for what it is and find those tools to process and move on and heal and live in a healthy way. For me, it's about helping my children and others heal. But if I don't know how to heal, how can I help my children go through the grief and the trials that they're going to have in life? It's my big motivator. But everyone else too. And myself. Because I'm still learning. I'm still learning so much and processing so much.
And we will.
It's a never-ending cycle.
So just remembering that life is a journey and grief is part of that journey, whether we like it or not. But like Shannon said, having those tools and that awareness makes such a difference. Such a difference. So we all take a collective sigh as we leave this space and maybe take a few breaths, because we may have brought up some memories for us. But in doing that, I'm also very thankful for all those that I've loved and all those situations that have propelled me on to something else. So I have a lot of gratitude. Love and gratitude, those two things are healing in themselves. So you can join us here every Saturday for a tea talk where we talk about different ways, holistic practices to help you on your journey to well-being. And you can also join our Facebook group, Soul Aligned Living. And we also have a Facebook page you can go to. We have a website that has some different offerings and information, soulalignedliving.org, and will soon be coming to Spotify. We're also on Instagram and YouTube. I'll call the links below. Until next time, many blessings, friends.